Okay, well, the most important part, the fun part, let me introduce you to our esteemed panelists. First, we have Michele Roberts, the Executive Director of the National Basketball Players Association. She's the first woman to hold this position and to head a major professional sports union in our country. We also have Crystal Carson, the Vice President of Communications for When We All Vote, an amazing nonprofit organization launched in 2018 with the support of Michelle Obama. And When We All Vote diligently works to increase participation in every election. We also have Jazmyn Jackson, an Athletes Unlimited softball player. She recently competed in the inaugural softball season. She's also a member of the league's Player Executive Committee and Racial Equity Working Group. So welcome to you all. Very excited to talk to each of you. So let's just dive in. For years, people have used their voice to stand up for what's right. And this leadership has adapted and evolved based on the times. So with what is going on right now, from the election to COVID-19 to the ongoing struggle for racial equity and racial equality, what does civic leadership look like to you right now? And I'll start with you, Michele.
It looks exactly the way it should look. And first of all, let me tell you how honored I am to be a part of this conversation with this group. What you guys stand for is exactly what I believe we need to be replicating throughout the sports world. But again, to answer your question, I've sort of always been of the view that each and every one of us, as members of the community, has a responsibility to engage when we see something that needs to be fixed. Rather than wait for, in other words, someone to tell us that it's time to move, we need to be empowering ourselves to do that. And what we're seeing now, which excites me, is a lot of that same thinking. Folks are not waiting at home for someone to tell them how to react, how to deal with their concern and their pain and their, frankly, anger. They're out there and they're finding each other and moving. The rest of us can only catch up. So there was a time when we thought we needed to be led. Where we are now is people understand that, no, I have a responsibility as a member of this community to get out there and be proactive as opposed to waiting for someone to tell me what to do. And it's exciting to see. I'm pleased.
Yeah. Crystal, what does it look like for you?
Honestly, I think what Michele said was right. It looks like what we're seeing now. There's so many people who are realizing that they have power within themselves, whether that's using a social media platform to be able to share with and reach their communities, or it's out protesting in the streets, or it's voting, which is not an and or. It could be an and. It should be an and if you're eligible to vote and you're able to make your voice heard at the polls. That has direct impact on your community, and your perspective and what you bring is unique to anyone else on this planet. And so knowing that and owning that and feeling that power is incredibly important. And I'm excited to see that more and more people are doing that.
Yeah. And Jazmyn, going off of that, one of the things that has really just warmed my heart in this time and made me feel so hopeful is the role that the athlete has played. But that has also been an evolution. I don't think it was really always like this for the athletes that we are watching today, but now they're coming out in full force, you included. So how has your role in your mind transformed through the years?
It, like you said, it's definitely been an evolution, obviously, with Colin Kaepernick being kind of the start of this evolution, and then to where we are now. I remember watching the Bucks and the Raiders this weekend, and watching Tom Brady, and I saw "End Racism" on the back of his helmet, and it's kind of like, it's a different type of solidarity that I feel the athlete community is now sharing, and it's not just one person speaking out; it's everybody speaking out, or everybody showing solidarity with the people that are speaking out and speaking up. And the fact that we are more than just athletes is now a common thing across the board, and that's awesome. And with Athletes Unlimited, just completely absolutely highlighting the fact that we are more than just athletes, and having athlete causes is a huge part of what we were a part of this season. It's definitely been an evolution, and I think we are exactly where we should be.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I forget every single day that Tom Brady's no longer a Patriot.
I know, that was so bad.
Patriots quarterback Tom Brady. I did that yesterday. I will probably do it again tomorrow. One thing, one of the things that makes me so happy about this panel is you guys have all decided, to be civic leaders, to use your voices. So I'm curious, as you guys are growing up, who were you looking at as those civic leaders? Who inspired you, Crystal?
I have a lot. I mean, I have to give shout out to my mom and my parents. They're both military veterans. They both worked and served in the Postal Service. So they were always civic leaders to me. And I think, and what we know actually from research is if you grow up in a household where people are voting or talking about voting, that you're more likely to do it as, when you turn 18. If you turn 18 and vote, then you're more likely to do it. You're more likely to become a lifelong voter. And so I have to give the credit where credit is due. And I'll have to say my parents on that one.
I love that. What about you, Michele?
That's very sweet. Because frankly, I was thinking to myself, to the extent I sort of found myself believing that I had a responsibility to the community, it came from my mom. I mean, it used to drive me crazy, but she was in everyone's business. If somebody knew kind of thought she was supposed to be the provider, and we were poor as hell. So my thought was, excuse me. So you're right. I mean, it begins with family, it begins with community. And for me, I mean, we can talk about Malcolm and Martin and all those people, but for me, it was watching members of my community. And I grew up in the South Bronx who would, the father who would take all the guys to the boys club so that they wouldn't have to be playing in the streets because there was too much broken glass on the basketball court. The moms, like my mom, who would realize that someone had lost a job and therefore buy an extra pound of butter at the grocery store. And it's anything that allows you to appreciate that you have a responsibility to your community. It doesn't have to be Malcolm and Martin. It can be just folks that live next door to you, and that's how it sort of evolved for me.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's one of the things that makes civic leadership so special is that it can be anybody. What about you, Jazmyn?
Kind of with Crystal and Michele here, it started at home. It started with my neighbors. It started at school. I was very lucky to grow up in the Bay Area. So I've been around a lot of diversity my whole life. And it's kind of been something that I was raised in, and like equality and making sure everybody feels good, and without saying words that I might not have understood yet. Like I might not have understood racism, but understanding how something might have made me feel, and being able to talk to a teacher or a friend, or especially my parents all the time. We always talked about these things. It definitely started at home for me. So I'm right there with Crystal and Michele.
All right, absolutely same. Parents are the best, right? All right, Crystal, as a representative, from when we all vote, like I said, a group that does amazing work, especially with outreach. You guys do great outreach to those who have platforms. Can you explain the role that you have found that athletes, celebrities, influencers have in raising awareness? And does that truly make, a lasting impact?
Oh, yeah. And thank you, Taylor. We are trying really hard to reach as many people as possible, but we can't do that without the help of really everyone. I think everyone really has the opportunity to make a difference where they are. And that includes athletes, celebrities, very well-known people like Michelle Obama herself. They have, and I know other folks on this call have huge platforms where people really admire and want to hear from them. So of course it makes a difference, but it also, myself included, I can make a difference with my family. I can make sure that they have a voting plan. I can call and bug my brother and make sure that he is registered to vote. All of us have the opportunity to really make an influence and an impact in our communities. Athletes and celebrities and other folks with high profiles really do make a difference because they just reinforce that this is an important thing that we should be talking about as a country. This is something that we should invest time in. And one of our missions is to change the culture around voting, which means make it something that people are excited to do, are proud to do. They want to do every single opportunity they can, not even just in a presidential year. And I think we're seeing that. I don't know about you guys, but I'm seeing folks show up and do line dancing at the polls. They're eating, food. They've got like fish fries at the polls, and like we have some really amazing things that are happening. And so I believe everyone really does have an opportunity to make an influence and an impact when it comes to voter registration and voting in their communities.
Yeah, no, for sure. And do you guys feel that way as well, Michele and Jazmyn, that voting this year does seem, very fun and like the cool thing to do? People are posting their selfies when they go vote. Is that what you feel?
It is amazing. Let me brag a little bit on our players. We're at 98% registered among the NBA players, which is terrific. Absolutely terrific. No, I mean, I've had asks of players in the past to do things, and they've been generally great with their time. This year, it's been a lot easier to call a guy and say, look, can you, sure. The ability of athletes to appreciate the power of their platform is exciting. And they're doing it, thank God, and using it in the right way. And this year has been phenomenal. I can't tell you, I've voted ever since I could vote, but I've never been as happy and excited about being able to vote this year because I've seen so many of us doing it at the same time. It's really cool.
Yeah. And, Jazmyn, Michele was, talking about the way, the NBA has really just revitalized this movement and encouraged this movement in so many ways. And I know it's the same thing with Athletes Unlimited. Tell me the ways that Athletes Unlimited, encouraged your voice and inspired people to take action as well.
Yeah, so we were part of Rally the Vote, and that was in getting all of us to register to vote initially. Now we're trying to get all of us to vote, of everybody that's registered. But we even had a gathering, a 1 hour gathering to just talk about voting and some of the topics that are going on right now and things that we're going to be voting about and for, things that matter, things that matter the most to these people, and talking about both sides of what's going on. And I think it's been very empowering for us as women and female athletes in general that aren't usually seen as, people that participate or should be participating in this kind of thing, to really educate ourselves and say this is what I'm voting for and this is why I'm voting for this. And and we are powerful women. So it's been really cool to just encourage that. And I think Athletes Unlimited and my teammates, we've all done a great job of making sure we're informed and we're voting.
Yeah. One thing that I have found, this year, and I feel like I see it on your face when you're talking about it, is something we don't discuss enough is how good it feels, to engage with the community, to vote, to use your voice. Have you found, just like the emotions that come with engaging in this work to be fruitful?
Oh, absolutely. I remember in the beginning of, COVID and everything really happening in USA and just in the world, it was kind of hard to get through just emotionally. And I know you guys have probably felt a lot of different things towards this movement and towards civic leadership in general. But instead of kind of letting those emotions take over me, I was like, I'm going to be constructive in the way I get out what I need to get out. So transferring that from just a feeling to, okay, I'm going to empower this movement. I'm going to empower myself, and I'm going to be a part of the racial equity working group, and then pair that with the player executive committee and really do something and really take action. I think that that has totally been sparked in me, and I'm so happy I've been a part of it.
I love that. Michele, I see you nodding your head. Would you like to add?
Well, the other thing I can say is I have watched now on the faces of my players, the same thing I see on this sister's face. It is joy in being able to take that frustration, that anger about, we need to do something and put it to action. It's you guys inspire me.
No, absolutely. They are such an inspiring group. Crystal, I'm wondering the same for you. I mean, using your platform and using, that group of When We All Vote to get people to vote has to be incredibly rewarding work as well.
Listen, y'all, I have to be honest. I almost cried. I voted this week. And I have to tell you, I really almost broke down. They were doing the poll workers, first of all, were doing such an incredible job. They were shouting out and celebrating first-time voters. And so every time someone would come up and identify themselves, everyone in the room would start cheering and saying, you know, that they were proud of them for coming in and voting. And it was a lot of young people. And that made me incredibly happy. And y'all, I almost cried. But I kept it together because I didn't want to get people distracted from all the amazing folks who had showed up that day. So yeah, I definitely share everyone's feelings here.
No, I love that. And Crystal, I know this is a question that you probably get a lot, and a question that probably all of us on this call get a lot is, what can I do? So tell the audience the steps they can take, the actionable items that will make a meaningful difference to encourage people both to vote, but also to make their voices heard and continue to engage and be civic leaders in their community. And I'll begin with you, Crystal.
Thank you for that question, Taylor. The first thing you need to do is make sure you vote. That's number one. Make sure you're registered. There are some states like North Carolina where if you're not registered to vote, you can show up and register on the same day through early voting, and then vote. And not everywhere is like that. You'll want to, you can head over to whenweallvote.org, just a little plug there, and you can, and I know there's actually resources. There are resources in the breakout rooms that you can check out on When We All Vote. Check to make sure you're registered. Find your polling place. If you're not voting by mail, or if you're dropping off your ballot, or if you're just planning to vote in person, find your polling place, check the hours, be prepared to potentially wait in line for a little bit. Bring a snack if you need to, bring some comfortable shoes if you need to. A lot of folks are able to go in and come right out, but in some areas you might get a little bit more traffic. But that's okay. Like I said, there's a lot of great initiatives going on now where people are actually doing celebrations around the polls. So maybe come over to our site. You can find one in your community, or just bring some headphones. Get ready to wait if you need to, and make sure you carry it out. And then once you finish, bring a friend to go vote with you. Make sure your family and friends are doing the exact same thing and have a plan to vote. There's early voting going on now throughout the country. But then, of course, Election Day is on November 3rd. So there's always an opportunity to go that day, get your I voted sticker, take a selfie, and share it with everyone.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Now, this is my final question for all of you, because I do think it's important to reach these people as well. If you could say one thing to every single person who is eligible to vote, but is on the fence, or any person who wants to use their voice, but is scared to, or any person who is looking to be a civic leader in their respective community, but doesn't know where to start, what words would you give them? I'll start with you, Michele.
The easiest thing you can do is vote. And if you think it doesn't mean anything, just take a look back 20, 30 years at the amount of energy that was being exercised to stop you from voting. If they didn't think it mattered, they would take so much time and pay so much attention to efforts to stop you from being able to exercise your right. So it's so simple. Just vote.
Yeah, no, strong and very true message. What about you, Crystal?
Yeah, just kind of building off of that, the election in 2016 was decided by less than 80,000 votes. 80,000 votes in 3 states. And so regardless of who you're voting for, or what you're voting for, what party you're in, you as an individual have an opportunity to make sure that the things you care the most about, whether that's jobs, healthcare, the economy, the things that impact you or may impact you or your community, climate, you have an opportunity to vote for the people who share those values for you. And the margins can be so slim. I've worked on campaigns where the vote was decided by one vote made a decision, or there was a tie and they had to do pick a ticket out of a hat to make a decision. That's happened literally 2 years ago. That happened in Virginia. So your one vote really does absolutely make a difference, and you won't regret it. You won't regret when you do, if you do vote. It's something that happens every few years. Take the time, get it done.
For sure. And Jazmyn, what about you? Finish us off. What words would you give to those people?
If I could just speak on what Michele and Crystal just said, with what Michele said, obviously it matters if people were suppressing it, if people were not letting us vote so long ago. That's just amazing to think about. There's so much history in voting. So understanding what the work that was done for you to be able to vote now is so important. And taking advantage of that. It's just like your parents putting you through college. You need to, people did so much to get you to vote. And then Crystal, with her saying, like, you need to get out and vote and educate yourself, and the things will affect you personally. I think that's so important. And then if I can add on, understanding the people that it affects around you. So sometimes I'm like, I don't really think this affects me. And then I think about my parents because they're getting older. I think about this community that this might affect the most. Just understanding that for you to live in a better world, you're going to have to be a part of making it a better world. And you're not the only person here. So really looking to your left and looking to your right and looking around you and seeing what communities need what, I think is so important, because it is about you, but it is about where you are and where you're living. So I think it's very important to take that into consideration as well.
For sure, for sure. Now, before we sign off, we actually just got 2 questions from the audience, and they're great questions. So I want to ask them. It's one for Jazmyn and one for both Crystal and Michele. Jazmyn, I will start with you. They said, how do you navigate having relationships or even conversations with people like teammates or coaches who have different beliefs than you?
I think those are really fun conversations, because I can approach them in a way where I'm completely understanding of their background and I'm completely understanding of mine. So I will not be upset at anyone for truly believing this or that, but I do ask, like, are we going to have an educated conversation, or is this just going to be off emotion? I think it's really important to understand the type of conversation that someone wants to have. If they want to have a conversation, if they want to know why you think what you think, and you understand that you're going to have to understand, you're going to have to want to know what they think as well. Having a mutual understanding of both sides, and then also understanding that if it's something that is not a conversation, that it is okay to pull yourself back and gather yourself, because I mean, I've gotten into fights with my brothers about things that we've just been mad and wanted to get in a fight, and it's unnecessary. So I think understanding that we're both human, we both have backgrounds, I think is super important before you start a conversation, and talking about those. You need to have those as prerequisites before that conversation if you're going to engage.
Yeah, for sure. Great advice there. And I absolutely concur. All right, final audience question. This is from Michele and Crystal, and it's an important question. They asked, how do we continue the momentum in favor of democracy beyond Election Day? And I'll begin with you, Michele.
It's not going to be hard for my players. I mean, understand that I'm not pushing them. I'm following them, right? So you all will recall that there was even some talk about not restarting the season because the players were so concerned that it might detract from the work that they were doing in this space. We did restart, but they didn't stop working. And since leaving the bubble, they're continuing to work. So the things I'm concerned about, it's not that suddenly they're going to find themselves bored. Not at all. I'm delighted every day to hear and learn and read and hear more and more about the stuff that they've been doing since they left the bubble. So I don't think this is a train that we have to worry about seeing stop.
Yeah. Crystal, how do we keep it going?
I'm so glad to hear you say that, Michele. I agree. I really do think, people have to really keep in mind that Election Day after November 3rd, we're still going. That's just the beginning. We then have to, regardless of what the results are in our, federal and, in local elections, we still have to hold our officials accountable for whatever issue or whatever issue that they backed or said that they would do. We have to make sure we're continuing to monitor and follow up with them. So when the next election comes around, we make the decision as to whether or not we want to keep them in office, because they're serving you. That's what you have to remember. There are a number of issues and topics that we all really care about, especially right now, they're not going to be solved on November 3rd. We have to remember that this is the long game and that we're just getting started, and we have to make sure we're being mindful, we're paying attention, and that we're continuing to keep the conversation going with our communities, because this is just the beginning.
Absolutely. I love this. And I know that all three of you always keep the conversation going. So thank you for bringing some of those words to this panel. I really appreciate your time and enjoyed talking to you guys and learning from all three of you. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Taylor.
All righty. Bye, you all.